A Quiet Place Part 2 finally hits theaters as Amazon makes a landmark deal to buy MGM Studios, and trailers for both Marvel's The Eternals and Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho are released. I'm Darius Delsoin.
And I'm Joe Acierno. This is Cinema Unchained. All right. Welcome to another week of Cinema Unchained. Today we're going to be reviewing A Quiet Place Part 2 at the end of the show, as well as giving our thoughts on two new trailers and the merging of two major media companies. But before we get into the new trailer for Marvel's The Eternals, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, the Podcast Index, or YouTube. Follow our social media profiles listed in the description as well. Now, before we dive into Amazon's deal with MGM, the official trailer for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's The Eternals was released this past Monday. Of course, the same day we released last week's episode, because why not? But I figured, you know what? We have to at least talk about it. It'd be a sin if we didn't talk about it today. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to be honest, I barely know because, again, I don't read comics. The Eternals is a team of immortal beings that watches over human society and has impacted the course of its civilization. Darius, you're the designated Marvel comic fan here. How do you think this one looks so far?
Honestly, I'm very intrigued, mainly because when I first saw this trailer, I was like, this is a Marvel movie? If they didn't slap on a Marvel Studios logo, I would not have thought this was a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is good, because I'm really liking that now they're taking more creative liberties as far as how their films are going to look and feel, the cinematography. And I think Eternals really just shows how different this is going to look and feel compared to the other Marvel movies. Because I'm going to be frank, for me personally, I am a Marvel fan, I love Marvel Studios, some of their movies, if not most of them, have been looking and feeling the same.
Yep,
absolutely. And that has been one of the negatives for their films. So I'm happy to see Eternals taking quite a big change as far as the look and feel of it. And so I'm very intrigued. I'm not really as excited as I hoped I was, but I am intrigued to see how this is going to play out and really the overall narrative of the MCU, considering the description is saying they've been watching over humanity for years, and you kind of wonder, okay, for years, all this stuff happens, where have they really been, what have they been doing, that sort of thing. It's going to feel like almost the Captain Marvel of this next phase, where it's like, you've been around for a while, but so it's like there's gonna be a lot more explanations. So I'm curious, to say the least.
Yeah, honestly, I'm in a very similar boat as you. Again, this is really only a teaser. It didn't really give you as much of the storyline, whereas just like it really gave you a feel for the film. And building on what you said as far as like the visual aesthetics for this particular film in comparison to other Marvel films, I agree with you 1,000%. A lot of them look, not that any of them really look bad, but a lot of them really look the same, and it all looks a bit too much like it came out of one studio. Of course, they did all come out of one studio, but again, it doesn't really hide that fact so much. Meanwhile, all these films, like, you know, by and large, they have different directors working on them. And I love how in this one you have director Chloe Zhao. This is the same director as Nomadland. And I'm watching the trailer, especially in those first couple of shots. This film, based on what we've seen in the trailer, has a lot of aesthetic similarities to Nomadland. So I thought that was very interesting, and I think it shows what bringing in a different director and just allowing that particular director to do their own thing can really do for a film, no matter how many other films are in like the same series or franchise. And I think back to like the Harry Potter films. I think there are about four different directors that did 8 of those movies, and all those directors like kind of brought their own thing, even though it was all in the same franchise. But another thing that this movie I think really has going for it so far, again, of course, it's only a trailer. This has a promising cast, to say the least. You got Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek, Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, Brian Tyree Henry, and Kumail Nanjiani. You also have Richard Madden. For those of you who don't know, he was the asshole manager from the movie Rocket Man, the fantastical musical life story of Elton John. Phenomenal movie. You should definitely check it out. That guy's in this too. And it took me a while to realize that that's not Sebastian Stan. Because let's be real, they look almost identical. Like I'm like, Is Bucky Barnes
Yeah, they kinda do.
is the Winter Soldier an Eternal? I got really confused, but no, it's just Richard Madden. So overall, I'm pretty pumped. Actually, I don't know if I'd say I'm pumped, but like we were both saying before, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Like I feel confident based on what we've seen so far and the pedigree that this film has going for it. But again, I want to know a bit more about the story and see exactly where that goes.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I really like about Eternals, and I'm going to be honest and frank, I don't know a lot about them in the comics. They haven't been like the main primary thing I read upon or anything.
Damn, I was banking on you knowing more.
I am, but I am curious to see if they do this, how they tie it into Thanos' origin as well, considering Thanos' origin in the Eternals do have some history in the comics. So I wonder if they're going to touch upon that at all. But like you said, I'm intrigued to say the least. I'm curious. And I really hope this is a hit. For some reason, I've been seeing a lot of people online saying this might be a bomb.
I don't think that. I don't think it'll be a bomb.
It better not be Inhumans, because that was a bomb. but I'm intrigued. I'm thoroughly interested to see where this goes. And the fact that they have two actors from Game of Thrones, I'm in. Let's go.
Kit Harington. Who else?
It was the Gemma Chan, the love interest.
Gotcha.
He was in Game of Thrones as Robb Stark. Yep. The brothers. So I'm excited, to say the least.
All right. Yeah, no, again, this movie is scheduled to come out November 5th of this year. There's another movie, of course, that got bumped around a lot because of COVID. You know, Marvel has been shifting its schedule around a lot. So we'll see what happens as far as this one. And to all of our listeners, all 10 or 15 of you, if you're still here with us, what do you, just curious, what do you all think of the Eternals? Did this teaser give you enough to actually get excited for the film? Leave your thoughts in the comment section, wherever you can. Now, moving forward. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Amazon has bought MGM Studios for a whopping $8.45 billion. Franchises like James Bond, Rocky, and The Hobbit come under the umbrella of Amazon ownership, with Amazon having a hand in potential future installments of these franchises. Darius, you're the one that brought this story to me. What about it makes it pop to you, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if people know this, but James Bond is under MGM, so it's going to be interesting to see how Amazon tackles a James Bond franchise. Really, are they going to do spin-off series? Like, what are they going to do with that big of a franchise that MGM is really best known for, to be frank? And so I just think that Amazon buying another studio for $8 billion plus, I think is pretty huge, as Amazon is already going full throttle with their own originals, such as Jack Ryan and Invincible and numerous other shows they're putting out.
Yeah, you also have Barry Jenkins. I think Underground is Barry Jenkins' Underground Railroad on Amazon. I thought I read that. Maybe I'm wrong, but they're also taking another massive bet on a Lord of the Rings television series, and I want to see how that goes, because I remember hearing about that, and I'm like, why are you doing this? The original 3 movies from Peter Jackson are pretty perfect. I mean, I don't understand what the point of this is. But no, I think just the biggest thing about this is that, like, now you have one of the biggest modern day media outlets now owns like this iconic movie studio. Like, a company that first came up for selling books online now owns the film studio that made The Wizard of Oz. I mean, let's think about that for a second. Pretty weird. Gave us The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, you know, that iconic lying roaring and like surrounded by the film reels. You know, it's really weird to see that all come under Amazon. And I just, you know, between this and the merger between Warner and AT&T and Discovery, you know, it just makes you wonder, like, what's going on with all these big media mergers. I'm just, you know, like, why? I don't even know. I don't even know, like, what the deal is. But I am curious, though.
Yeah, it is interesting to say the least. As you mentioned, that like, this news happens to come out after the Warner Media and Discovery merger and everything, and it just makes you wonder what other merging studios is going to happen in the future. What's Disney's plan in the future, Lucasfilm, etc. Because it's as much as there's quite a bit of competition, it slowly starts to feel as if that competition is fading away ever so slowly,
which bothers me.
And it's just and it's curious as to see not only the competition slowly fading away as to what it seems like, but also just how these studios is slowly starting to become almost a Disney, Warner, and like an Amazon and that sort of thing. Like, it's going to be very obvious as to what the big brands, what the big studios, companies' names are in the foregoing future.
Yeah, I'm waiting, and again, I don't know if they already do own a film studio, but I'm waiting to see if Facebook and or Microsoft can miraculously buy another film studio for themselves too. Because they're like one of the big, I guess, 5 companies of like information and like information technology and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see where this goes, but I'm a bit skeptical as far as all this, because again, I'm just thinking to myself, this stuff all seemed to work pretty well on its own before all these mergers, before all these huge properties being acquiesced by these even bigger companies. So I'm a little skeptical as far as all this. I'm wondering what the deal is, but I have an odd feeling that whatever the deal is, I'm not going to be happy with it.
Yep, I'm in a similar boat as you, man.
Yeah, because I remember when we talked about the Warner Discovery merger in our last episode, I was kind of indifferent to it. I wasn't really sure what to think. I was a bit puzzled, but like now that I'm thinking about this again, you have less companies now. Like the number of companies are decreasing because they're being bought up by all these massive companies, and it's a little unnerving. Not gonna lie, because again, now you just have less competition overall, less outlets overall. So, but
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. All right, to all you folks, how do you guys feel about the Amazon MGM deal? Do you have any other thoughts as far as like all these media mergers that seem to be going on with Warner and Discovery, or I guess even with Disney buying all the Fox properties in the last couple of years? Leave your thoughts in that comment section there below. Now, before we get into the trailer for Last Night in Soho, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, the Podcast Index, or YouTube. And those social media profiles you see in our description, they're there for a reason. They're there for you to follow. Now, before we review A Quiet Place Part 2, the trailer was released for Edgar Wright's newest film, Last Night in Soho. It follows a young contemporary fashion designer as she's allowed to enter 1960s London and is enamored by her idol, who is a wannabe singer, but the world she's passed into isn't all what it seems to be. Darius, you and I actually saw this trailer together when we were going to watch A Quiet Place Part 2. And I remember, like, I saw this trailer before we saw it all together. And once I knew, like, what the trailer was, I'm like, oh, shit, I want to see what everyone thinks about this. This is going to be sick. I can't wait. Now, we never really talked about it outside the movie, as far as I remember. How do you think this looks?
If it's Edgar Wright, I'm down.
Yep.
If it's some sort of psychological thriller, I'm even more down.
Same.
This movie I love the visuals of it. I love how stylized it looks and feels. And I love that it's sort of a psychological thriller. And I really like Edgar Wright. I really like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
He's terrific.
And he's an amazing director. He has a very unique voice as a director, and you can tell in his movies, you can tell the similarities, you can tell the differences. And I think this movie is just, I don't know why, but even seeing it in the theater, I had even more chills compared to watching it at home on my phone. And absolutely. I'm thoroughly very excited to see this movie now.
And again, building off of what you were saying about Edgar Wright, again, this is the same guy who directed Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, terrific movie. He also did Baby Driver, he did Shaun of the Dead. So this is a talented filmmaker, to say the least. And building off what you were saying as far as like how he can pick out the similarities and differences between each of his films, this movie seems very different than what we're used to from him. Because even though he's tackled a different bunch of genres, like you have Shaun of the Dead, which is a horror comedy. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which is like an action comedy. Same with Baby Driver. Even though Baby Driver is, I don't know if it's strictly a comedy, but definitely feels more comedic than dramatic, to say the least. This is a dramatic horror thriller. Like, this has a strictly dramatic edge to it. And I'm just like, with the feels and like the chills that I got watching this, I'm pumped. I'm really pumped. Given that this is Edgar Wright, who I said is a very talented filmmaker, trying something different and seems to be pulling it off, I'm really looking forward to this. The film definitely has two very promising female leads. You have Thomasin McKenzie from Jojo Rabbit, gave a terrific performance in that film. And you also have Anya Taylor-Joy opposite her from The Witch and The Queen's Gambit, both of which are very well received as well. This also feels like a very, not only an original story, but it seems to be an original way of telling it. Again, this could all be speculation too. This is a trailer, but just the entire feeling that I got from watching this and really thinking about this doesn't feel like anything I've seen before, not only from him, but from really anyone, at least in a long time.
Yeah, like I said, like, this movie really intrigues, because as much as we can tell the differences of Edgar Wright, his style, his voice, like you said, Joe, this does not. It's like almost a completely different side of his brain, and I'm thoroughly interested to see how this movie turns out. Because if you're making a psychological horror drama, I'm already in, because I like psychological stuff. I want to get into the nitty gritty of someone's mind to see how messed up they are.
I'm living vicariously through someone else. But yeah, no. Again, like we were saying, like you see all these different parts, all these different moving parts that you wouldn't expect to see, and now they're coming together, and it just makes it that much more exciting. Again, the horror, psychological thriller end of things, that's intriguing. You have the fact that Edgar Wright, who's a filmmaker that I've been following for a while, obviously very talented. Now both of those are coming together. That's something I didn't see coming or wouldn't have seen coming. So I'm really, really excited, to say the least. This is one of many films, again, to get postponed because of COVID-19, and now is scheduled to be released this October, which is perfect, right in time for Halloween. I'm dying to see this one.
I am too, and I can't wait to see. Just like, I'm seeing this movie in theaters.
Same.
I don't care.
Oh, listen,
I'm seeing it in theaters.
Any movie that comes out, like at this point, I'm looking to see in theaters. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. I'll at least think of seeing it in theaters, be like, is it worth going out? Can I watch this at home and really not feel like I'm missing much? Yeah, but this isn't going to be one of those. This is a must see in the theater for sure. This is a must see in theaters, and I think this is the kind of movie that you have to see with other people too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I have a feeling if you're gonna be with other people, I think it's even more interesting when you see it with friends or other people. Mainly because it's like, okay, this is a psychological thriller horror drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are each of your friends individually going to interpret this film? And I think that's going to be another. And that's another great thing about these type of movies. It opens up discussion. It opens up character discussion, how we perceive certain elements of film and the themes that go on. And so with that alone as well, makes me even more intrigued for us to talk about it on the podcast and going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you all think of the trailer for Last Night in Soho? Are you dying to see it like we are? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And now, to cap off the show, we're going to review A Quiet Place Part 2. This is a sequel to the 2018 smash hit A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place Part 2 follows the Abbott family as they continue to struggle to survive in a world plagued by blind aliens that hunt by sound. Now, this is another movie, yet again, that got postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the very first film to get postponed. I remember it was like a week or two before it's scheduled to come out. This is when things were like really starting to go crazy, March 2020. And I get a news alert on my IMDb feed saying that this movie had been pushed back indefinitely. And it was really strange, and it turned out to be the shot heard around the world as far as movies getting postponed because of COVID-19. But now it's finally here, and I'm going to be honest and just say right off the bat, this was well worth the wait. Not only it wasn't just worth the hour and a half I spent watching this movie in the theater, which has to be seen in the theater. It was worth the over a year that I had to wait in order to watch this. But Darius, I'm curious if you feel the same way.
So when I first got out of the theater, at first I was like, I like it, I didn't love it. the more I thought about it now, given a few days, I freaking love this movie. This met almost all of my expectations. John Krasinski, yet again, can put me on the edge of my seat.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens it has to be, this is, I believe, his second movie now. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is absolutely phenomenal. Everything from having, really how I see it, two leads in this film, Emily Blunt's character and the daughter. I'm not going to spoil anything, but like just seeing how these characters are yet interacting, even interacting with new characters in this film, is thoroughly enjoying, thoroughly exciting, intriguing, putting a face on the sounds of these creatures that are this horrific and this frightening is also interesting too, because if there's anything I was always curious about as far as the world of A Quiet Place, is what these creatures truly look like. Mm-hmm. We always saw glimpses of it and maybe a bit of how they look, but never fully realized. And seeing them fully realized in A Quiet Place Part 2, I have to say these are some, one, interesting designs, and two, I love just how even these creatures are interacting with the world too. They have this ferocity and this frightening aspect to them that I was just like, yo, this is freakier than I could ever imagine for this type of movie, and I really like it.
Building off what you're saying as far as it's like, expanding things, right? Like this movie definitely expands the quote Quiet Place universe. It expands what we know about the monsters. It introduces a new character, new threats, new solutions, and stuff like that without spoiling too much. But it still keeps a lot of the same great things from the first film. John Krasinski's direction, the craftsmanship, the amazing use of sound and silence. That's another thing that I loved about the first movie, and it's just as great in this film as well. The movie still had me on the edge of my seat throughout. It still feels very intelligent. Like, this is technically a horror movie, but you don't have like any stereotypically dumb horror movie decisions going on in this film as well as the first one. So that's something I respect a lot about this. And again, I think that comes down to writing more than anything. I think John Krasinski did a terrific job writing this film as well. And again, the intelligence, the craftsmanship, the emotion, you still care very much about everything that's going on with these people. And I think too, that's something that a lot of horror movies are missing. You have, the scares, and like that's the thing that the people go for. But I think if you add that extra emotional layer, like, oh man, I actually care about these people that are going through this horrible thing. Like, this isn't just like, scary, or like, this isn't just, torture porn. Like, I actually care about these people that are going through this terrifying situation. And A Quiet Place 1 and 2 managed to just pull that off really, really well and separate themselves from other horror movies in this department.
Yep. And one of the things that we both touched upon, the whole A Quiet Place Part 2 expanded the world. To me, it not only just expanded the world, you see new characters, new interactions, but it still was able to keep its focus in the main family and focus in elevating even the tension within the family and what the family is going through. And I didn't think they would pull that off, but they did that so well in a way that is enriching. And not only that, but also when you meet the new characters, you care about them too, which I didn't even expect that to happen for myself. Because with Cillian Murphy's character, great actor, love him in Dark Knight and in the other film in Inception and Dunkirk, he was terrific in this movie. And man, I really felt for this character, and I did not expect to feel that much, and not only feel for him, but also as I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking of the type of person maybe he became after the invasion, and it just made me so intrigued and so immersed in this film overall that I was just like, nothing in this film really pulled me out completely or even made me question why did this happen when this could have done this. I was just fully in this world and fully in this movie.
You believed it. That's what it comes down to. You believed everything that was going on. Everything made sense. And again, going back to, I guess, expanding things, right? We keep going back to expanding things, but it's one of the things that this movie pulls off really well. the characters find out a lot of new things as far as like, the people they knew, as far as like, the threats that they face. And I love how this wasn't all explained like in the beginning of the film, whether it's in the beginning of this one or the first film. We find out everything new with the characters. We find everything out with them. And I think this really helped give the film like a sense of mystery and discovery too. Like, it made me feel like, oh, I'm on this terrifying journey with them.
Yep, absolutely. Like, again, this, I don't know, John Krasinski, you keep at it, man. My eyes are open. Anything you do, I'm interested now and intrigued. Because you are just, you have a 2 for 2 now.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people can do a solid 2 for 2.
Yeah, like I said, this movie definitely stands tall with the first one for sure. Like, I don't think one is in a different league than the other. These two are very much in the same caliber of quality film for sure.
Exactly. So I definitely recommend people, if you loved A Quiet Place Part 1, you're probably going to love this just as much as we did. If this is the type of movie for you, this, again, if you liked Quiet Place Part 1, you'll like this too, most likely, probably. Again, so I hope you guys like this movie. My God, just thinking about it, I want to see it again.
Yeah, no, this, like I said, this is well worth the delay time. This is well worth the hour and a half in the theater. And I remember originally this was supposed to, after it got delayed, it was supposed to come out a bit later than it did, but then like randomly got pushed back to, or pulled up to Memorial Day weekend. I'm like, holy shit, fuck yes, let's go. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy because, again,
it's like, yes, finally.
Because this is another movie that I think is going to be essential in bringing people back to cinemas, to bringing them back to the theaters, because honestly, this has to happen. As someone who loves a movie theater experience, this has to happen. This has to stay alive. And I'm really happy that A Quiet Place Part 2 came out when it did, because who knows how much longer like the movie theaters can survive without films such as this one.
Exactly. And so there's really almost, I will say one thing. There is an actor in here that I did not see coming. And I do feel as if I wish they gave him a bit more in the movie, but I understood why, I guess, they put him where they placed him in the script. And I'm fine with it, but I really wish they did more with this character.
I think I know who you're talking about,
this
too.
Actor.
I don't want to give it away, but I have an feeling I know who you're talking about.
But like I said, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was predictable at certain points. I think towards the middle to the end, it started getting a bit predictable, but at the same time, for me, I didn't care that much because it was just like, it was that enriching. It was that engrossing to the point where it's like, I'm not there really not just to see how the plot unfolds, but these characters and how they react to the situations that they do.
And experiencing these situations
with them,
too.
Enjoyed it.
And experiencing experiencing this situations with them too. Like, even, and again, I can't say I felt like the movie was like terribly predictable or anything like that, but even if it was, I felt like I wouldn't have minded, because even if I knew what was going to happen, like what was going to happen was scary, or, to use your word, engrossing enough that you're kind of just counting down to that thing happening,
Exactly. Which is why I'm fine with the predictability aspect, because it's like the world was that interesting, unique, the characters, the family, I was in it, and it's not, this is the immersion of a film and how powerful films can be. And I think A Quiet Place Part 1 and 2 are a prime example. And this movie also reminded me of a video game that I love called The Last of Us, where how they just did certain things, and the one shot they almost didn't. I love this movie. That's all I gotta say.
And again, just to say one more time, this is something that has to be seen in the theater. And I just want to ask you guys, was A Quiet Place Part 2 worth the wait for you? Did you see it in the theater? Do you want more following this sequel? Leave your thoughts in the comments section there below. And just like that, episode 17 has come and gone. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, the Podcast Index, or YouTube. And our social media profiles that are there in the description for the show They're there for you to follow, so I suggest you do so. And just like that, we're done. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Darius, for doing this with me yet again. And I'll see you all soon.
No, of course.